In previous lecture, already you have been introduced about the syllabus, right, of aerodynamics. And I suggested you to revisit some of the concepts of fluid mechanics, at least introduction chapter of fluid mechanics book, right? So because that is very much needed in order to understand the first unit. Anyway, I will revise the same concepts again here, so it will be good if you have already gone through it. Uh, okay, so am I clearly audible to you?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. So we will start today the first topic, that is introduction, or you can say review of fluid mechanics. So whatever concepts you have studied in the first two chapters, right, of fluid mechanics, we are going to revise those concepts briefly here today. And yeah, because those definitions, basic definitions are needed in order to define a flow. So first we will start with the fluid, and then we'll go for flow. Then clearly differentiate between what is fluid and what is flow, because both are entirely different. So here is my presentation. Is it? Yeah. Can you view it clearly?
Yes, sir.
Good. So today's topic is basically classification of fluid flow. Prior to go to the flow, we'll define the fluid. So this term is coming from basically the fluid mechanics. So fluid, first of all, we should know what is a fluid. Fluid is a common name given to any substance, right, which is capable of flowing, right? Generally, it is somebody who doesn't know ABCD of engineering, right? He will be defining in that way. Fluid is something which is having inherent capacity to be flowing. And how actually it is getting flowed, because it is having certain property which is called viscosity, right? Any fluid will have viscosity. Now viscosity may be more or low, very low, negligibly low. Like when we are talking about viscosity is very low, right? So we can say that as a viscid fluid. So fluid actually, example, if somebody want to know what is basically the example of fluid. So fluids can be liquid, can be gas, right? Gas can also flow, liquid can also flow. But liquids are having some definite value of viscosity, right? They are not readily flowing, but gases are highly expansible, right? The moment you will expose the gases, right, in the free atmosphere, they will start flowing. All right, so gases will have lower viscosity compared to the liquids, but both liquids and gases are the part of fluid. So fluid is generally defined like that, right? But as an engineer, right, we should define fluid in some technical terms, right? If somebody who doesn't know engineering will be defining like that, it is something which can flow. All right. In engineering language, when you're defining a fluid, fluid is a substance, right, which deforms basically. Why it's flowing? Some deformation is happening. Any gas medium, any liquid medium will have a number of molecules, right, inside that. So those molecules will deform continuously while that particular volume of the liquid or gases are flowing from one point to the another point. So we can say fluid is a substance, right, that deforms continuously under the action of shear stress, right? No matter how small that shear stress may be, even with a negligible magnitude of shear stress, there will be a deformation in the fluid, right? So this is the technical definition of fluid. So fluid is something, is a substance which deforms continuously under the action of shear stress, no matter how small that shear stress may be. All right, this is known as fluid. So, so we can say the deformation which is happening is responsible for the moving of fluid domain from one point to the another point. All right. So let me start our discussion. So fluid mechanics, first of all, it is a general statement given by the Sanger and Simbala. These are the two authors basically. They have authored one book named Fluid Mechanics. It's very much famous book of fluid mechanics. Sanger and Simbala. They have defined right, fluid mechanics is something. It is a science that deals with the behavior of fluids at rest or in motion, and its interaction with the moving object or stationary object, right? So there is a wide variety of fluid flow problems encountered in practice, day-to-day practice. If you see, there are very variety type of problems. If you want to really simulate them, you have to simulate with the help of basic concepts of fluid mechanics, right? So you have to classify them first. In particular, case, either it is a uniform, or it is a steady case, or it is a rotational case, or it is an ideal case, or it is a real case. So with the help of fluid mechanics concept, you can clearly classify the kind of flow which is taking place in those kind of engineering devices. Let's consider the example of compressor. So in compressor, what happens? In compressor, it takes the air in and then it compresses it a very high pressure ratio. So when it's going to compress, its pressure is increasing. Why it's increasing? Because volume is decreasing, because they are inversely proportional concepts. So volume decreases and pressure increases. So in reality, what exactly the compressor is doing it? How it is doing it? It is taking the air inside, right? Air is coming and it is getting rotated at very high speed, right? So kinetic energy term, right? That kinetic energy term, it's increasing initially, then it is getting stored inside diffuser. There's a diffuser casing at the end. So from through diffuser, it will expand. So what will happen? Your kinetic energy is getting converted to the pressure energy in the case of compression. In the case of compression. So how do you define that? So it is a rotational flow, right? The moment your airflow is coming inside, it is impinging over the blades of compressor. Now compressor blades are rotating entire flow domain. So the flow will become rotational flow. So the using the equation of rotational flow, we can simulate the actual scenario around the blades, right? So fluid mechanics is the science. With the help of that, we can study the behavior of fluids, right? Either fluid is at rest or it's moving, or its interaction with the moving or stationary object through that fluid domain. Oh, voice problem. Okay, let me check it. Yeah, hello. Am I audible now clearly? Hello? Hello? Am I audible now? Yeah, okay. Okay, so let's start our presentation now. So next one is, what is fluid? As already defined, fluid is something, it is a substance that deforms continuously when subjected to a tangential or shear stress, right? No matter how small the shear stress may be. This is the technical definition of a fluid. Keep in mind. So it continuously deforms, right? Even a negligible amount of shear stress can produce deformation in the substance. That is known as fluid. So, and you can say generally it is a substance that is capable of flowing, right? Examples are liquids and gases. Now, next definition is fluidity. Fluidity means ability, right? We can say like that. Somebody asked what is fluidity. It is a tendency of continuous deformation of fluid, which is known as fluidity. And we'll come to the flow. What is the flow? It is the act, or you can say it is the action of continuous deformation of fluid. It is known as flow. So keep in mind this very basic definition, very basic difference between fluid and fluid, right? This is called action. Flow is called action, and fluid is a substance, right? So it is the act of continuous deformation of fluid. Is known as flow. Is that clear? Okay. So that's the case. So now let's come to the liquid and gases. As I said that liquid and gases both are the part of fluid. Now we will differentiate clearly, right? What is liquid and what is gases? Can any one of you summarize at least two differences between liquid and gases?
Gases does not have surface tension, sir.
Good. That's a very good point, right? He has pointed out. Another difference.
Gases generally have low density, sir.
Good. Yeah, that is also one of the factors. Good. So 2 points we got. Still we can differentiate, right, from general, molecular structure, right? So first, differentiation you have to make based on the molecular arrangements, right? So you can say in the case of liquids, molecules are relatively compact shape, right? They are spaced very compact compared to the gases. Second point, you can again go like a liquid will have a definite volume, right? Volume we can define for that, but it's not having shape, right? Particle shape. But in gases, both are not determinant, right? Even volume and shape both are, cannot be exactly say about the gases. And then somebody has pointed out very good point, that is surface tension. Surface tension is coming because of the formation of free surface, right? A liquid forms the free surface, but gases do not form the free surface. When there is no free surface, there is no surface tension force. Second, density is, somebody was talking about density. Yes, density is also very, very important parameter. So liquids are not too much compressible, right? If you want to compress the liquid, you have to spend extra pressure over that, right? It's not very easy to compress the liquid, but gases are highly, highly compressible. Even in negligible amount of force, you can compress them, right? So these are the major, now question comes, right? If gases are highly, highly compressible, then how can we consider the incompressible flow scenario? Because in aerodynamics, you are going to study entire thing incompressible flow around two-dimensional or three-dimensional object. That is only possible, right? For all practical purposes, I want to say, for all practical purposes, water and air can be considered as ideal flow, right? And in the velocity range of up to 100 meter per second, gases can be considered as incompressible flow. That is the one of the important criteria. So this aerodynamics that you are studying is low speed aerodynamics. So low speed aerodynamics deals with the flow speed up to 100 meter per second. If you want to cross 100 meter per second, then high speed aerodynamics will come into the picture, where somebody has in previous class asked about whether aerodynamics is related to the compressible flow, right? That one elective is there for you. So compressible flow basically deals with the high speed flows when velocity is more than 100 meter per second. If it's going to cross that, then shock formation will take place. Different kind of shocks will come. Now the shock, oblique shock, those kind of shock formation will come. Shock formation is nothing but compression waves. So immediately after that wave, there will be a significant, changes in the flow properties. So exactly you cannot say what will happen to the flow velocity, what will happen to the flow pressure immediately after that the compression wave. So that phenomena comes after you are exceeding the speed more than 100 meter per second. That is called high speed aerodynamics, or you can say the compression flow. So if we want to summarize, right, we can summarize liquids and gases differences in this way. First is have definite volume but no definite shape in the case of liquid, but gases neither definite volume nor shape. Second, as surface tension that somebody has pointed out, have free surfaces in the case of liquid, in the case of gases no free surface. Third, can be considered as incompressible for all practical purposes. Liquid can be considered as incompressible for all practical purposes. Gases are highly compressible, right? Fourth point, volume is practically unaffected by pressure and temperature. As I said that if you want to, compress the water, you have to spend large amount of pressure, right? So even with smaller amount of pressure, you cannot, change the volume of liquid. That's why this point has come. Volume is practically unaffected by pressure and temperature. But in the case of gases, right, it expands infinitely, right, in the essence of pressure and contracts with the pressure, right? These are the major four differences between liquids and gases. All right, so like that you have to differentiate between liquids and gases. If this question comes into, somebody may ask what is the basic difference in engineering terminology. You have to define this way. Next, come to the classification of flow. As I said, that flow can be defined as the act of continuous deformation of fluid. Right now, we have to define how many types of flows are there. Right. So types of flows you can classify based on the behavior of flow. Right. Based on the behavior of flow. Now they may be. I will classify them into 7 categories, but if you go with a different kind of scenario, right, you can classify them into 11 categories, 11 to 12 categories. So I have put them into total 9 categories, right? But they are basically 7 types, right? So first is viscous, which investigate regions of flow. Second one is internal and external flow, right? Third is compressible, which incompressible flow. Fourth one is laminar and turbulent flow. I think though you might have got some information about this, right? From boundary layer concept, if you would have studied from fluid mechanics, right? Laminar, turbulent flow. And natural and forced flow, right? Steady with unsteady flow. Then 1, 2, and 3 dimensional flows, right? Then this is the basic definition, right? But I have added here ideal and real flows, right? Then finally rotational and irrotational flows, right? So these are the various types of flows. This is as per the action of flow, right? In what way your flow is taking place. So for different kind of engineering devices, different kind of flow patterns will be there, right? Flow regions will be there. These will be one of these types of flows will be existing in different kind of flow machineries. So first one is viscous and inviscid region. So the point when we are talking about viscous and non-viscous, so viscosity will come into impact, right? Where there is a viscosity in the flow domain, that kind of flow domain is known as viscous flow. When there is no viscosity, or you can say there is a negligible amount of viscosity present in the flow domain, such kind of flow is known as inviscid flow. Now come to the definition of viscosity, right? So what was the basic definition of viscosity that you have studied from fluid mechanics? Any one of you please define the viscosity.
The resistance between two layers of flow.
Correct. Yes, you are going the correct way. Yes, it is an internal resistance between two layers of fluid, right? And it is basically offered by the fluid. When fluid start moving, it will resist the motion of layers, right? One layer of flow with another layer of flow, so it will resist the motion of layers of flow. That is known as viscosity. So it is the inherent, property of fluid, right? So all the fluids will have viscosity. So if that is present in the fluid domain, that kind of fluid known as viscous flow. So as he defined, I also going in that way. When two fluid layers move relative to each other, a frictional force develops between them, and that slows the layer, right, at speed, and that is known as viscosity, right? This internal resistance to flow is quantified by the fluid property called viscosity, which is a measure of internal stiffness of fluid. So viscosity, how viscosity is happening? That is happening due to the cohesive forces between the molecules of liquid, right? And by molecular collisions in the gases. So up to this level, you no need to go to define the viscosity. But in reality, it is happening with the molecular collision, right? So molecules are interacting with each other. Because of that, in between them, cohesive forces getting developed, and because of that, it is resisting the motion of one layer of fluid with respect to the another layer of fluid. Right. So there is no fluid with zero viscosity, that is keep in mind. Right. In reality, none of the flow can be said as inviscid flow. Right. So flows in which frictional effects are significant are called as viscous flows. Keep in mind. And but there is a condition, right? Let's suppose a flow is taking place on a parallel plate, right? Like in boundary layer concept, you might have studied. If a parallel flat plate is facing the flow, what will happen? Near the surface of the solid means parallel plate, there will be a generation of boundary layer. The boundary layer is basically developing due to the existence of viscosity. Right. It is a very thin region. It is a very thin region. If you are going beyond that region, there will be no effect of viscosity, right? So viscosity effects will be very, very near to the solid surface. So if you are very closer to the solid surface, you will feel the effect of viscosity, or you will feel the effect of internal resistance offered by the fluid. But you are moving away from the solid surface, there will be no effect of viscosity. So the region right away from the solid surface can be considered as an inviscid region where there is no effect of viscosity, right? So that's why it is written in many practical interests, they are region, right? Typically regions not close to the solid surface where viscous forces are negligible small, or compared to inertial or pressure forces, a region is known as inviscid region, right? But near the solid surface, it will be a viscous region. So this is one of the example, right? This is a famous example. Usually, whenever we are defining the boundary layer, we are taking this kind of case. So this is a solid flat surface, right? And over that flow is taking place. So this is the region, right? This is very narrow region that you are seeing. This is a leading edge, right, where flow is getting attached. and this is the narrow region, right, where boundary layer is getting formed. So this is the reason, right, this is a thin region where you will feel the viscous, right, effects, right, this side and this side. That's why this zone is known as viscous flow region. If you are going away from that, right, there will be a very negligible, effect of viscosity. So this region is known as inviscid flow region, right? Both side you can see. All right. So it is very closer to the solid surface. You will find the effect of viscosity. If you are going away from, there is no effect of viscosity.
Sir,
Yes.
Sir, excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, could you just go back to the previous slide?
Yes.
Yes, thank you, sir. Okay, sir.
Is that clear? What
Yes.
I explained, I said that the region near the flat surface, you will feel the effect of internal resistance. If you are going away from it, right, there will be no effect of viscosity, and that region is known as inviscid region, right? Keep in mind, viscous region will be near the solid surface, so you can say within the boundary layer, you will feel the effect of viscosity. If you are going away from that, there is no effect of viscosity. So you can say it is a type of flow in which there is no effect of viscosity. That is known as inviscid flow. But in reality, in nature, none of the flow is inviscid flow. Keep in mind. For practical purposes, some cases we neglect the effect of viscosity. Next one is internal with external flow. So by the name itself, we can define if flow of fluid is taking place within a closed cavity, or you can say within the pipe, if flow is taking place. Such kind of flow is known as internal flow. If flow is taking place on a flat surface, right, in open environment like over a table or over a flat plate, such kind of flow is known as external flow, right? But in most of the practical cases, right, we are dealing with the external flows, right? Because everything is moving right externally over the surface. Like if you want to study the aerodynamics of a car, right, you'll be focusing on the outer surfaces. So outer surfaces, whatever flow is taking place on outer surfaces will be an example of external flow, right? If you want to study the effect of here with behavior within the pipeline, right? Let's suppose you want to see how much how to increase the mass flow rate of fuel right in the pipeline or fuel pipeline, then you have to use the concept of internal flows, right, to understand how to increase the mass flow rate, right? So two kind of flows are there, internal flow and external flow, as per the way in which your flow is moving. So a flow is classified as being internal or external depending on whether flow is forced to flow in a confined channel or over a surface. All right. So the very basic definition, I'm not going to repeat that, already I covered. So example is water flow in pipe, right, is an example of internal flow, and air flow over a ball or over a exposed pipe, right, during a windy day is known as external flow. Next one is compressible and incompressible flow. All right. So when we say incompressible flow, it is a flow in which density, right? Density does not change from point to point, all right, while flow is getting moved from one point to the another point. Let's suppose flow is moving from one point to the another point, there will be no change in density of the medium throughout the flow. Such kind of flow is known as incompressible flow. Compressible flow is the flow in which density changes from point to point, right? Changes from point to point. Such kind of flow known as compressible flow. Very simple definition. So fluid flow is classified as compressible and incompressible depending on the variation of density. Keep in mind this term, variation of density. And what variation in density is taking place? Due to the variation in volume, basically. Your volume will change, because of that density will also change. So incompressibility is an approximation basically, but in reality, none of the flow we can say it is incompressible. But for practical purposes, we are considering water as incompressible. All right. But in reality, none is incompressible, it will change. All right. So example is given here, right? Like consider the liquid water, right, and 1 atmosphere, right? If you want to change its density, you need to apply a pressure of 210. If you are applying this much, there will be just 1% change in density. So water is usually considered as incompressible. If you consider the case of gas, even you apply 1 atmosphere, within that, density will change by more than 10 times of initial density. Right, so liquid can be considered. This liquid can be considered incompressible for practical purposes, but gases cannot. All right. So Then we can say about gases, right? Gases, I said, even with this much amount of pressure if you apply, there will be a significant change in density of air, right? Now, next parameter, right? When we are talking about, as I said, that if we are crossing more than 100 meter per second, right, then compressible flow domain will come into picture. So, any speed more than 100 meter per second, all right, any speed more than 100 meter per second, you have to define. Yes, you said viscosity is due to cohesive force, but boundary layer is due to abrasive force also. The boundary layer is due to viscosity, right? There is no basically adhesive or cohesive, right? Keep in mind. Boundary layer due to viscosity. If viscosity is present, right? Because of that, boundary layer formation is taking place. All right. That's the one thing. There is no proper, you can define boundary layer with these kind of forces. Only viscosity is present. In that case, it will come into the picture. Okay, so next one you come to the Mach number. This is very important parameter, right? So Mach number usually we will consider for any kind of flow which is crossing 100 meter per second. Keep in mind. So the moment you are going in high speed flow regions, there as per the Mach number you will say at this Mach number this kind of shock formation will take place. At this Mach number this kind of shock wave formation will take place. So Mach number is defined as the speed of any object relative to the speed of sound. Keep in mind, relative to the local speed of sound. That's why Mach number is defined as speed of flow divided by the speed of sound, right? Where c is the speed of sound, whose value is 346 meter per second in air at room temperature at sea level, right? So based on Mach number, you can define the regions of flow, right? If your Mach number is exactly equal to 1, that means your speed of flow is exactly equal to the speed of sound. We can say that is a sonic flow. Sonic flow. So sonic when Mach number is equal to 1. If Mach number is less than 1, that is known as subsonic. If Mach number is greater than 1, that is known as supersonic. If Mach number is very high, right, then 1, you can say if Mach number is greater than 5, like in aeronautical terminology we say, if Mach number is greater than 5, you will say that flow region as hypersonic flow. Hypersonic flow. Right, all these space vehicles, right, re-entry vehicles, they used to travel, right, at a Mach number greater than 5. That is called hypersonic flow regions. So now come to the point, right? At what Mach number we can say the flow is incompressible? As I said that flow velocity lower than 100 meter per second can be considered as incompressible flow, right? So for the gases, if Mach number is less than 0.3, this is the threshold value of Mach number. If my Mach number of flow is less than 0.3, right, then flow can be considered as incompressible flow. Keep in mind, flow can be considered as incompressible flow. So this point you keep in mind. So wherever your flow velocity is less than 100 meter per second, flow can be treated as incompressible flow, whether it is a liquid or whether it is a gas. All right, that's the one important point. Next one is laminar and turbulent flow, right? So laminar flow is the type of flow in which flow moves in such a way that the layers of fluid, right, they will be moving in a well-defined path, right? They may be parallel, they may be inclined, but they will be almost parallel to each other, right? Direction may be anything. They may be inclined at a certain angle, or they may be flowing horizontally, but layers of fluid will be following a definite path. Such kind of flow is known as laminar flow. Turbulent flow is the flow in which fluid layers move in zigzag way. There is no definite path in which your fluid layers will be moving, right? There will be lot of zigzag, flow region generating within the flow domain. Such kind of known as turbulent flow. So if there is a lot of what we say disturbance in the flow, what will happen? Total energy of flow will be more, right? If it is a laminar flow, in that energy will be less, right, compared to the turbulent flow. That's why laminar flow usually separates earlier than the turbulent flow, because turbulent flow there is a lot of mixing of flow from the exterior boundaries. But in the laminar flow, there is no mixing of flow from the exterior boundaries. So this is the one, this two cases, right? This is a laminar flow where fluid layers, if you look at, right, they are exactly parallel and moving in a well-defined path, right? But in turbulent flow, there is a lot of disturbances, right? They are moving in zigzag way. This is the case of turbulent flow, right? This is the two basic types of flow that we usually deal with when we are dealing with the boundary layer study, right? Laminar flow, turbulent flow. There is another flow, right, in between, right? In between this and this, there is a region where a lot of disturbances will be there. That is called transition zone. So till now, no one has formulated any mathematics to study the transient flow, or you can say the flow in the transition zone, right, where it is getting transformed from the laminar to the turbulent flow region. Turbulent flow region. So this is the transition zone. You look at here, some portion is looking like laminar, and immediately after that it is becoming the turbulent. So this zone is known as transition, right, which is connecting the laminar with turbulent. So a flow that alternates between being laminar, turbulent is known as transition. So how to define this is laminar flow, this is a turbulent flow, this is a transition flow. There is a parameter called Reynolds number, right? So Howard Reynolds in 1880s did an experiment, and he formulated a non-dimensional term that is called Reynolds number, right? Reynolds number. So based on the Reynolds number value, you can say this flow is laminar, this flow is turbulent, this flow is transition. So take the famous example of boundary layer, right, again. So usually any of the textbook, right, they start boundary layer definition from a flow over a flat plate, right? So if you consider the case of flow over a flat plate, right, that boundary layer is taking place. Reynolds number, usually you will find critical Reynolds number is value is 5 into 10 to the power 5 something, right? So if your Reynolds number is less than that, right, then you can say flow is laminar. If it is going beyond that, it is known as turbulent flow. If it is exactly nearby that, we can say transition zone. We can say transition zone. That is applicable for external flow. If it is an internal flow within the pipe, right, if flow is taking place within the pipe, for the Reynolds number value is very, very less. Critical Reynolds number for the internal flow is just 2300, right? Some books used to say 2300, some experiment have predicted that it is just 2000, right? So critical Reynolds number is between 2000 to 2300, right, for the internal flow, and for external flow it is 5 into 10 to the power 5, right? So that is in mind. This is critical Reynolds number. Below it, flow will be treated as laminar. Above it, it will be turbulent flow, right? So based on Reynolds number, you can differentiate between the laminar and turbulent flow. Next one is natural and forced flow. Natural means the flow will have inherent capacity to move due to the density gradient. You don't need to force the flow to the domain. The moment you will leave the flow, it will start moving. Like you talk about the airflow motion, right? It is happening in the universe. That is the case of natural flow, right? Due to the density gradient, some regions there will be lower density, another region there will be higher density. So flow will start moving from higher density zone to the lower density zone. So due to density gradient, right, there will be a natural flow of air that is known as natural flow. Forced flow, where you are forcing the flow to happen, right? Let's suppose in the case of compressor, right, or in the case of turbine, you are forcing the flow to happen. Such kind of cases are known as forced flow. So very basic definition. So fluid is said to be natural or forced depending on how the flow motion is initiated. In forced flow, fluid is forced to flow over a surface or in a pipe by external means of such as pump or fan. Right, in natural flow, any fluid motion is due to the natural means such as buoyant effects, right, which manifests itself as the rise of warmer to lighter, right, or hotter to the cooler. If you talk about the heat flow, that happens, naturally from hotter side to the cooler side. Such kind of flow is natural flow and forced. Next one is steady and unsteady. When you talk about steady means it is fixed with respect to time. So we can say steady flow is the flow in which fluid properties, right, pressure, volume, temperature or pressure, density and temperature, right, do not change with respect to time at any point. But there may be variation in the property with respect to space. If they are moving from one point to another point, there will be variation in properties, but at a single point, there is no variation in any of the properties of the fluid. That is known as steady flow, right? Unsteady flow, where there is a lot of variation in properties of fluid. So the term steady implies no change at a point with respect to time. Keep in mind, with respect to time. The opposite of this is unsteady, right? So in fluid mechanics, usually unsteady is the most general term, right? Sometimes people used to say that is a transient, right? Transient. So transient is something, right? All of a sudden it will happen, right? Like in thermodynamics, you might have studied work is a transient form of energy. If it is within the system, you will not feel it. Immediately after the boundary, you are feeling it. So all of a sudden it's getting converted into the work. So transient and unsteady. So unsteady flow is the flow in which fluid property changes with respect to time at a single point. But in a steady flow, at a single point, right, there will be no change in the property of any kind of flow parameters. So example, right? Take the example of developing flow, right? Developing flow is getting developing. So consider the case of a rocket engine. If you are just firing the engine, right? So within the combustion chamber, the moment you start the ignition, what will happen? Your flow of fuel, right, or you can say propellant and oxidizer starts burning. When they start burning, pressure will develop, right? That zone is known as developing flow. That is called as developing flow. Once it is fully developed, then you will get the thrust, right? Then only you will get the thrust. So that's the example of transient effect, right? Pressure build up inside the rocket engine, and then finally flow accelerate. The moment your flow gets accelerated, you get the thrust. Right, so many devices such as turbine, compressor, boilers, condenser, these are steady flow devices. Right, so within that device, your flow properties will not change. But if you take inlet and outlet, there will be change in properties of the flow domain. Right, so all the turbine, compressor, boiler, condenser, heat exchanger, these are known as steady flow devices. Steady flow devices. Keep in mind. Next one is one-dimensional, two-dimensional, and three-dimensional flow. So depending on the direction of flow, you can say it is one-dimensional, two-dimensional, or a three-dimensional flow. So somebody is saying it is a one-dimensional flow. That means what? The flow will be traveling in one direction only. It may be either x-axis or y-axis or z-axis. Right? Usually three-dimensional flow will be said like x, y, z. Right? X, y, z. So it may be either one x-axis or y-axis or z-axis, right? So you can consider that one. So I will be writing here. So let's suppose if I am saying flow usually defined by velocity. So if I say velocity is a function of only x, right? One parameter, and time will always be there, because whenever you analyzing any open system, you have to make your system steady, right? That's why every time you are studying steady cases, right? So if this is the case, right, only it is varying with respect to x. So this is the x, right?
Sir,
Yeah.
sir,
Yeah, yeah, tell me.
actually, if any flow is practically is three-dimensional source, no, sir. Then how we differentiate one-dimensional, two-dimensional, sir?
Yeah.
The
I
flow
will
is
come to
always
that
a
point.
three-dimensional
Don't
flow.
worry. That's
Okay, sir.
yes. Always all natural flows are three-dimensional flows if they are moving in external flow domain, right? If flow is taking place within the pipe, what is the case? Boundaries are now rigid. Boundaries are rigid, so there will be no change in vertical direction. There will be only change in oriental direction, or direction in which or you can say the along the length of the pipe there will be a change in properties, and that flow will be treated as one-dimensional flow, right? Flow within a pipe will be considered as an example of one-dimensional flow. Is that clear?
Okay, sir.
If we are saying air flow in the universe, right? Here we don't have, we cannot put any limit in that. So in that case, this will be the case of three-dimensional flow. Air flow may vary in all the three dimensions, right? If it is an open case or external flow, will be treated as three-dimensional flow. So all the natural flows which are happening are three-dimensional flow. But in practical purposes, we can make them one-dimensional or two-dimensional or three-dimensional. So if flow properties are varying with respect to only one direction, right, that is known as one-dimensional flow. So this is the one case which I said here. Velocity is varying only with respect to x-axis, and time, right? Time variation also will be there, right? Second case, if it is a two-dimensional, right, then two parameters will be changing. So we can say velocity is varying with respect to x, y, and t. Keep in mind, t will always be there. T, why we are considering the case of unsteady. But if we are making it steady, t will be 0, right? There will be no change with respect to time. So that is known as two-dimensional flow. If we consider three-dimensional flow, most of the natural flows are three-dimensional. For that, v is a function of all the three, right? And the time, and time. So this is a 3D flow, right? This is 2D flow, and this is 1D flow. Clear? So as per the direction of flow, right, you can classify them into three categories: 1, 2, and 3 dimension. So take the case of this, right? This is one of the case of one-dimensional flow, right? This is a one-dimensional flow. This is a pipe. These boundaries are reset, so nothing will go beyond that, right? So now velocity, you look at velocity is a function of r and z. So r is this, right? R is radius of pipe and z is this. So along the radius there is a change, right? Change in velocity, and along the length also there is change in velocity, right? In which zone? Up to here, up to here, up to this point, there is a change in velocity taking place along the radius, along the length. So this zone, starting from this point up to this point, is known as developing flow. So in the developing flow regime, flow will be two-dimensional flow, right? Because there is a change in velocity across the radius direction as well as along the length direction. Once it is becoming fully developed flow, if you reach here, right? Look at here. Now it is fully developed. Once flow is fully developed, this will be treated as only one-dimensional flow because there is a change in velocity along the length direction, but nothing is happening in this direction. Look at here, it was developing only, right? So this was developing, finally it's becoming full velocity profile. So this is now fully developed. So velocity is a function of along radius only, right, up at this point. But here it was changing along the length as well, right? Length and radius. So in the developing zone, it is two-dimensional. Fully developed case will be considered as one-dimensional.
Sir,
Yes.
sir means developing flow is unsteady and fully developed flow means steady.
Yes, fully developed flow is steady, right?
Okay,
And
sir.
developing flow is unsteady, two-dimensional case.
Sir, I
Right.
can't understand how is developing flow two dimensions, sir.
Look at here. The moment flow is entering in this pipe, right? Boundary layer is forming. This is the line which you are seeing is the boundary layer, both sides, right? This is the boundary layer. This is also the boundary layer. So within the boundary layer, velocity gradient is generating. This velocity gradient that you are getting, this is the velocity gradient which is developing within the boundary layer. Slowly, it will reach here. It will be fully developed like this. Up to here, it was uniform flow, right? Rectangular flow domain, which is entering here. Now it's becoming the slightly parabolic. Still, this zone. You look at this zone. Still, there is a disturbance due to the viscosity, right? Viscosity of medium. The flow, the moment it is reaching here, where both the boundary layers are coinciding, right? Now this fully both the boundary layers are getting coinciding at this point, right? They are merging at a single point. Here, what is happening? This zone also you are getting fully developed flow, right? Here already velocity profile we got parabolic, and this side also we have got almost parabolic, right? But this zone is still we are getting the rectangular case, right? Here look at this is not a parabolic. The point we are reaching here, where both the boundary layers are merging together. Now we are getting fully parabolic profile. This is known as fully developed flow. Right. So within the boundary layer, there will be transient effect. Within the boundary layer, there will be transient effect to the viscosity. So this zone, starting from here up to here, is basically a transient zone where it's getting developed. Because of that, velocity is varying with respect to r, z, and t time. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Take the case of automotive car, right? This is the external flow, right? So for the external flow, here again, here flow will be for most of the practical purpose if you want to analyze, right, effect of drag only, right, resistance only. So you have to focus only on front and back, right, what is happening here. So if just you are focusing over here and here, you can treat the flow two-dimensional, but in reality it's three-dimensional, right? Because we are not considering the effect on sideways. We are not considering this side, right? So we are neglecting this. If we are just wanting to know how much air resistance will be there over the automotive car, then we can simulate that thing with the help of two-dimensional flow itself, right? Two-dimensional flow itself. So we will be focusing along the length, right? And as well as along this direction, along vertical direction. So flow over a car can be considered as two-dimensional flow. Two-dimensional flow. This is one example of two-dimensional flow. Is that clear? Next one is ideal and real flow. So ideal flow is a flow in which density remains constant. There is no surface tension. There is another criteria. Zero surface tension, right? And viscosity is zero, right? These two important property, and it is steady. So you can say flow which is steady, incompressible, in which case is known as ideal flow. So for in the case of ideal flow, you can say that generally viscosity is zero, right? Density is constant, right? There is no variation with respect to time also, right? So it is a steady, incompressible, inviscid flow is known as ideal flow. In reality, none of the flow is ideal flow, but for all practical purposes, air can be considered as ideal flow, right? For all practical purposes. But in reality, air is not an ideal flow. Keep in mind. So these are the three important properties, right, for ideal flow. Viscosity zero, right? Density constant. With respect to time, there is no change in property. So you can say steady, incompressible. Inviscid flow is known as ideal flow, or another term is known as potential flow. Sometimes we say that as potential flow. Ideal flow. Second case is real flow. Real flow will have definite value of viscosity, and density will not be constant in the case of real flow. So real flow is a flow, right, in which density, you can say it is a compressible, viscous, and unsteady, right? Unsteady. It may change with respect to time as well. So unsteady, compressible, and viscous flow is known as a real flow, right? So like that you can define. So ideal and real flow. Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Well, yeah. So this is very important. Definition. Keep in mind. In reality, all the flows are real flow, right? If it is a real flow will have definite viscosity. Its density cannot be always treated as constant, right? It may be steady or unsteady depending on the type of application. Such kind of flow is a real flow. Ideal flow in which it is incompressible. Always we consider that as incompressible, zero viscosity, right? And steady. So these are three important parameters. Next one is uniform flow and non-uniform flow. So uniform flow is the flow in which velocity of flow, right? Velocity of flow at a given time does not change with respect to space, right? Velocity of the flow at a given time does not change with respect to the space coordinate. So if I say this is velocity, I will say dou v by dou s at a given time is not changing with respect to space. This kind of flow is known as uniform flow. Clear or not? If so, example of this, you can say, right, fully developed flow in a pipe is an example of uniform flow. So velocity is now fixed, right, for fully developed flow. But developing flow will not be considered as uniform flow. In that case, velocity is varying, right? That is called non-uniform flow. So opposite of this is known as non-uniform flow. Non-uniform flow is a flow in which velocity at a given time or at a given instant varies with respect to the space coordinate. So you can say dou v by dou s, right, at a given time, right, it is going to be zero. So this became opposite. So this is the first case of uniform. This is for non-uniform. The non-uniform is with respect to space, right? There will be change in velocity. That is called non-uniform flow. So this first case, this dou v by dou s at time is not equal to 0 is for non-uniform flow, and dou v by dou s at time is equal to 0 is for uniform flow. So for uniform flow, velocity will not change with respect to space, right? For non-uniform flow, velocity will change with respect to space. Is that clear? So the case, second case of non-uniform flow, you can say if flow is taking place on an inclined surface, right? That will be considered as non-uniform flow. Next one is rotational flow and irrotational flow. By the name itself, you can say rotational flow is the flow in which flow is getting rotating, right, while it's moving from one point to the another point. Such kind of flow is known as rotational flow. So, or you can say the fluid molecules, right, or particles rotates about its own mass center, right, about its own center of mass while moving from one point to the another point. So I will draw it schematically. If I draw, flow is going like this, right, from first position to the second position. So let's suppose I am considering one particle here. This is the initial condition, right? It's like that. Then it became like this, right? The movement is coming here. Then it became horizontal, right? Then it became like this. And finally it became like this. So this kind of flow domain, right, in which fluid particles are rotating, right, while flow is moving from one point to another point is known as rotational flow. Irrotational flow, right, the type of flow in which fluid particles do not rotate about their mass center while flow is moving from one point to the another point. Such kind of flow is known as irrotational flow. So in this case, initial condition is also like that, and it will be going like this throughout the flow domain, right, from 1 to 2, from 1 to 2. So this is known as irrotational, right? And first one is rotational. Clear? First one is rotational, second one is called irrotational. That's all. So we have covered almost all the type of flow. So any doubt in this? Let's have discussion now.